We are just days away until the dropping of EA Sports College Football, the newest game. Before that game comes out, I wanted to compare last year's roster versus this year's rosters using the ratings in the game. I think it's a nice benchmark to show you the difference between last year's team since there's so much turnover with the West Virginia Mountaineers. So before we can compare rosters, let's take a look at the guys that we lost in the portal this offseason. Some of them have nice ratings. I mean, if you look at Tomas Remak and Josiah Trotter and CJ Donaldson, Hudson Clement, they would have been definitely nice players to keep around for the Mountaineers, but it's 2025. You just had a coaching change. So ultimately, you're going to lose players. You would have lost players either way. So it would have been kind of interesting to see which of these guys would have left anyway, even if Neil Brown was the coach. But this is what their ratings are. Again, there's some nice players here that it hurts to lose. You wish you could have kept those guys, but ultimately, I think a lot of them are replaceable. So we're going to go through the roster. I'll mention them a little bit as we go on to show, okay, we could have really used that person, but as an overview to start, these are the guys who we lost in the portal this past offseason. So looking at the quarterback position, you're going to see an initial drop off from last year. Garrett Green was rated as an 85 overall, and then Nico Markule was a 78 last year. Kind of got a weird end on this year because he dropped 2 points even after playing a bunch last year. So he's only coming in at a 76. Same with Jalen Henderson. I think again, when you look at these ratings, the game has not come out yet. These are pre-release ratings, so take all these with a grain of salt. I think whoever gets the job for the West Virginia Mountaineers is an 80, at least an 80 overall player. Rich Rodriguez feels really comfortable with this quarterback room. He did not go out in the portal after spring ball to get a quarterback. He felt that comfortable with both these guys, or even three guys, he said, that he feels like he could win with right now. So I'm not too concerned with this drop off. Even last year, if you look at Garrett Green, 85 overall, that was based on what he did the year before. Garrett Green did not have the season that he wanted to have last year. And when Nico was in there, I didn't feel like there was that big of a drop off. There was a big debate last season if Nico should have just finished out the rest of the season because he was playing pretty decently and he was the quarterback of the future. So even though you're going to see a dip here, and it's a pretty significant dip ratings wise, I'm honestly not too concerned. And again, I think whoever wins this job is going to be in that green zone, going to be in at least an 80 overall or better zone. So this might scare Mountaineer fans looking at it on paper, but to me, I'm not too concerned. Moving over to running back. So Jaheim White got a very nice boost this past offseason. He went from an 84 overall to going to an 89 overall. So he was one of the top 100 fastest players in the game, which is awesome to see. Jaheim White, I think, again, I've mentioned it numerous times on this channel, is ready for a big season. Now, you lost CJ Donaldson, who goes on to Ohio State, but you replace him with some pretty nice players that are pretty good. So if you look at Jalen Knighton, a transfer from Miami and SMU, he's more than capable. Ty Edwards, a guy we've mentioned a lot from Northern Iowa that had over 1,000 yards. Myron Williams is a kind of fictional player. You could probably replace him with like Sincere Bowers and then Dior Hubbard. So you have like 4 to 5 guys that can carry the rock that you feel comfortable with. So I love CJ Donaldson. He was one of my favorite players for the Mountaineers, but ultimately it's okay if we lose him. This is probably the strongest position group that we have on campus right now. So you feel really good about the upgrade here. We definitely upgraded from an 84 to an 89. So if you're playing the game, it should be fun to play with Jaheim White. And for the Mountaineers, you're going to run your offense through the running back. So expect all these guys to get a decent amount of carries. It should be really fun to watch this group ball out this season. Taking a look at receiver now, this room is very, very similar to last year's ratings. So if you look last year, the top receiver was Hudson Clement, which was an 82 overall. Well, this year it's Cam Vaughn with an 83 overall. So basically the same. Your number one receiver is going to be in the low 80s. And then the other guys behind them are in the high 70s. So Rodney Gallagher this year, 79 overall. Jaden Bray, 78. Orrin Singleton. Christian Hamilton, a transfer from UNC. And then Preston Fox. There are some guys missing here too. The guy from South Carolina State is not on the roster as of right now. So that's another thing with these ratings are there's not everyone's there yet. So again, take everything with a grain of salt. Those guys could definitely make their way into the rotation, but as a snapshot overview right now, you're looking very similar to last year. It would have been nice to have Hudson Clement here. Not gonna lie. Could you imagine pairing up Hudson Clement with Cam Vaughn? That would have been a nice 1-2 package. But ultimately, Hudson Clement's in a good spot at Illinois. So I know West Virginia fans definitely felt a certain type of way when he left because he was a walk on here and played locally at West Virginia High School, Martinsburg. So losing him definitely stung. But ultimately, he's going to do what he's going to do. But it's basically the same position you were in last year, right? It's going to be you're going to use these guys as best you can. So there really is no drop off at wide receiver for this year. So the tight end rooms again similar to wide receiver. There's not really a drop off at all, which is really good news for West Virginia because Cole Taylor was a very solid player for the Mountaineers. Again, I think he's someone that was underused in his time at West Virginia. So they had him at an 84 overall. So the new guy that's coming in is Grayson Barnes from Northern Illinois, 83 overall, can make the one-handed catches, can definitely play really well in that position for the West Virginia Mountaineers. So he's someone I think West Virginia is definitely going to use in the passing game, which is great to see. So we should feel comfortable with Grayson Barnes. He's only one overall off of where Cole Taylor was. So if that tells you something, that shows that this kid can definitely play. So this is where we're going to see by far the biggest drop off with the West Virginia Mountaineers. It's going to start at left tackle, and then really the whole offensive line is where I'm probably most concerned with the West Virginia Mountaineers, if I'm being honest. All the other positions I think are replaceable, but I think the biggest question mark going into the season is definitely the offensive line. So let's just start here. So at first we have Wyatt Milam, which is a 94 overall who we lost. He got drafted by the Jacksonville Jaguars this past offseason, so he was a great player. The thing is with him leaving, though, is you had to replace him anyway. So even if Neil Brown was still the coach, you would still have to replace Wyatt Milam anyway. You probably would have replaced him with Johnny Williams, who now is at Missouri, but his rating's not that great right now in the game. So I think Johnny Williams has all the potential in the world. But as of right now, July 23rd, his rating is what it is. So these are the guys that have a chance to replace him. So Xavier Bosley, keep an eye on him. He's a guy that played for Jacksonville State and Rich Rodriguez 2 years ago. So keep an eye out for him. The offensive line we're going to go quick through because it is such a crapshoot. No one has any idea who's going to be the five. This is what EA Sports projects it as, but it's going to be a battle that goes all camp long. So we'll go through it real quickly. Just moving on to the next one. So here we lost Brandon Yates and 80 overall. Here's where the drop off's not too bad. You have Carson Lee. So Carson Lee is a guy from Eastern Michigan that has played a lot of football. Originally transferred to Mississippi State, but decided after spring ball to come to West Virginia. So we'll definitely take him. He's probably going to be a favorite to get playing time here. Then we have left guard. We have Tomas Remack again. He's the one that I think was the biggest loss in the portal. If you look at his rating, he's a 91 overall now at Virginia Tech. We would have loved to have that. Although we have Walter Youngbear, as they have it slated here, who is probably the best lineman that we have, or the most comfortable lineman that I feel comfortable with going into the season, a guy from Tulsa. So great football name, by the way. So I think Walter Youngbear is definitely going to be a solid piece for the West Virginia Mountaineers. But man, we would have really loved to have Tomas Remack in this room. Going over to right guard, Quay Hubbard played a lot of football for the West Virginia Mountaineers after transferring over from Virginia. They have Aiden Bustle as the favorite here. Aiden Bustle is a transfer from Tennessee. Was a backup role for the Volunteers, so could be a nice player for the Mountaineers. And we also have Chemo there as well, a transfer from LSU. So again, it's still really wide open of who's going to be the solidified starter there. And then we have Tykees Crawford, a transfer from Arkansas, 76 overall, and we lost Nick Malone last year to I think graduation. So again, the offensive line, if we're being truly honest with ourselves, I think it's the most concerning drop off that we're going to see. The only good thing about it, though, is that we brought in so many guys, and the competitions are just going to be so wide open. So you know the guys are going to be working. So if you can just find five guys that can do the job, and probably really 7 or 8 because you're going to rotate guys out. If you can find 7 or 8 to do their job, we can be okay. But if there is a reason for concern, it is probably the offensive line. So onto the defensive side of the ball. I think the defensive side of the ball, you're going to feel really good about after we're done here. So if you watch this here, Jamori Robinson, again, we've mentioned him a bunch. He is the real deal. 10 and a half sacks last year, American Athletic Defensive Player of the Year. So 86 overall. I'm honestly surprised it's not a little bit higher. So look out for a big season for him. And then Eddie Kelly, too. So they're both listed at left end. I'm sure they're going to play opposite sides of each other because they're that talented, and you're going to want both those guys on the field. So you feel pretty good here. I mean, Eddie Kelly's an 84 overall. Sean Martin was an 81 last year, and Sean Martin was a very good player for the West Virginia Mountaineers. So if Eddie Kelly's an 84 coming over from Missouri, you got to feel really good about him. So those two end pieces of Jamori Robinson and Eddie Kelly, those guys are going to be extremely important to the defense. So I know a lot of people are concerned about West Virginia's defensive line this year, but for me, I'm not. I think these guys are definitely going to have really good seasons. So then moving on to the next position in defensive line, Hammond Russell gets a nice rating, 80 overall there. So you have Eddie Kelly, you have Jamori Robinson, and then Hammond Russell an 80 overall. So you're looking at 80 overalls for at least 3 defensive line positions. Fertoma Moba was a really solid player for West Virginia the last 2 seasons. He came over from Penn State and played really well last year. So going to miss him, but Hammond Russell can definitely do the job. Eddie V stays at a 77 overall. Eddie V last year got hurt really early in the season. So I think he used his medical red shirt. That's why he's back and he's eligible. So I really do feel good about this defensive line coming into the season. Moving over to right end, you lost Tyron Bradley, who was a 79 overall player. Really liked Tyron Bradley for the West Virginia Mountaineers. It was a nice get in the portal. And we lost Ty French, but you come back with Curtis Jones Jr. with a surprising 78 overall rating, and then Braden Siders, a transfer from Wyoming. So again, a battle that's going to be wide open this offseason. So not too big of a drop off if you're looking at those positions for the West Virginia Mountaineers. We're going to keep this one really short because Will Hoffman and Xander Stone, to my knowledge, are not real players on the West Virginia football roster. They're fictional players, and we lost Ricky Williams, who was a 67 overall, but you're going to move guys over. This is another position at linebacker where not all the guys that are on the roster are in the game yet. So when the game comes out in a few weeks, hopefully that gets addressed because they are some decent players coming in. So totally disregard this slide, but definitely had to at least keep showing it. So this is one that I found interesting. We have Reed Carrico listed at an 81 overall. Reed Carrico used to play at Ohio State, so big school guy that came over to West Virginia, played for the Mountaineers last year. You lose Trey Lathan, who I really liked as a player. Thought he had a bright future ahead of him, but he's ultimately on to Kansas, so we'll miss Trey Lathan, but we play him actually the first Big 12 game of the year, so watch out for that. But you got to feel good if you're the Mountaineers with an 81 overall from Reed Carrico. Over to right outside linebacker, you see here Josiah Trotter. He's one that, again, probably either the biggest or the second biggest loss that we had in the portal this offseason. He's a great player. His dad played for the Philadelphia Eagles for a long time, so losing him to Missouri definitely stung. But you bring in Chase Wilson. Chase Wilson's a guy that we haven't talked about too much yet, but if you haven't seen this guy play, go look at his highlights at Colorado State. He's a tackling machine. He's someone that has leadership, so I think that he's definitely going to be a guy that is going to play for the West Virginia Mountaineers this season. So even though he doesn't have the same rating as Trotter, he's definitely a good player and someone that West Virginia can rely on. So this position group right here, in my opinion, is the biggest upgrade that we had as West Virginia fans. If you look here, Aiden Garnes was the top cornerback going into last season at an 82 overall. Other than that, there was a lot of question marks. I really thought Garnett Hollis was going to be a lot better for the Mountaineers coming over from Northwestern, but didn't have the season that he wanted to have. This group definitely struggled last year. There were times, if you watched West Virginia, there were guys running down the field, and there was no West Virginia guys in sight. Guys were wide open. This group really struggled last year. So if you look at who we brought in, you got to feel really good. Let's start with Jordan Scruggs, a guy from South Alabama. He gets a nice 86 overall rating. He's actually rated higher than Michael Coates Jr. So that was a little surprising, but that just goes to show you what EA Sports thinks of this guy. So as a West Virginia fan, after seeing that, you definitely have to be excited about that. Michael Coach Jr. is someone we've mentioned a lot as well. So Nevada, all Mountain West Conference last year, 4 interceptions, lockdown corner. You have to feel really good about that. Darian Lewis, a guy from Akron that comes over, flies around the football field, comes in with an 80 overall rating, and then Derek Carter coming over from Jacksonville State with Rich Rod, another solid player. So I really think this room is really, really solid. Probably the most solid room that we have for the West Virginia Mountaineers. Going over to other parts of the secondary, Aubrey Burks. Let's talk about this one. So Aubrey Burks was an 87 overall last year, and you see Justin Harrington, a transfer from Oklahoma and Washington, coming over, and you might look at this and be like, okay, it's a 6 overall drop. But if you remember, Aubrey Burks only played 4 games last season. He was after the Kansas game, he no longer played. He was injured. So even though you lose him, it's not really a drop off. They had KK Tarnu listed as a strong safety last year. This year they have him as a free safety. I'm not sure how the safeties are going to work and where everyone's going to play. I think that's still up for interpretation, but Justin Harrington's a nice player. I think he's someone that's been waiting patiently in college football to make a big impact. He was a highly recruited guy, so you feel comfortable with him at that position. So again, don't be scared if you lost Aubrey Burks because he basically only played a quarter of the season last year. And then here, Fred Perry. Fred Perry got probably the biggest bump from someone from last year's game. So a few weeks ago, I put out a video of the West Virginia depth chart and what it would look like with guys, and Fred Perry was in the 70s. He is up at an 89 overall. I think he's West Virginia's highest rated player. So he's definitely a baller. We've mentioned him a bunch. The dude lays the hammer. He lays the wood on defense. He's going to knock you in the mouth. So he's going to be someone the West Virginia fans love. So this was a 10 overall upgrade. Again, not sure which position Fred Perry is going to play as far as safety goes. They have different ones, and I'm sure Zach Alley is going to transfer guys around. And then you have KK Tarnu, who we've mentioned, who really got a lot of playing time at the end of last season. So you feel good here if you're the West Virginia Mountaineers looking at the secondary overall between the corners, the free safeties, the strong safeties, how they're going to rotate guys, and if they're going to play different positions. So if there's one thing that I am looking forward to, it's definitely the secondary. I think that we have a lot to work with here for West Virginia. Let's finish up with special teams. Going to keep it quick. Not really a drop off at all. Michael Hayes, 77 overall. You're bringing Kate Hensley at a 76 overall from Coastal Carolina. So you can expect a similar type of guy here in that position. And then punter is very easy because it's Oliver Straw, who was an 80 overall last year and 80 overall this year. So that's the roster. Again, take everything with a grain of salt. There's a few players that are not on here. There's a few fictional players, and it's just a pre-release. So the official game doesn't come out for a few weeks. Can't wait to play with the Mountaineers. Can't wait to watch them this season. If you like the video, please like and subscribe. Let's go Mountaineers. We'll see you next time.